Every paw has a story, some filled with love, some with pain, but all of them deserve hope. Welcome to Tales of Hope, voices for the voiceless, hope for every paw. Here, we speak for those who can't, and together, we create hope, one paw at a time.
Let's welcome today's guest. Varda Mehrotra is an animal justice advocate and a movement strategist with 2 decades of experience in food systems. As the co-founder of Samayu, she focuses on advocacy, policy engagement, and culturally relevant strategies to create systematic change for animal, people, and the planet. She has worked across grassroots activism, research, and policy to strengthen intersectional approaches in animal advocacy. Let's all welcome Varda. Varda, welcome to the show. Uh, we're so
Thank you so much.
All right. Can we? Let's start with the first section of the show, which is where we try and get to know you more. Can we understand what inspired Vardha to get into the journey of animal welfare?
My father, I think my father really inspired me to get into this journey. So my father was a senior head of the forest force in Rajasthan, conservationist. So because of him, I spent a lot of time in forest. I spent a lot of time surrounded by nature, watching animals, not just as I think subjects of animal use, but really as beings in their own right. So I think that had a very profound impact on me. All those experiences of being in nature, of experiencing animals in nature as something that exists in its own right. They're not things that exist for human use. So I think that was certainly the big inspiration. And I think it was just since then, it's just been an evolution. So every time I found something, I saw something or read about something that deepened my understanding of animal exploitation, of how also so many systems of oppression are interconnected. You can't really talk about animals in a vacuum. So when I looked at all these different things, of course, my own work, my own direction of work, my own thinking evolved, and then every time something was happening externally or in my own thinking, I would step in, I would sort of do more. And there was never really any moment of hesitation, and never neither an active thought or a doubt that this would be my life's work. It was simply just a very natural evolution, it just unfolded before me. It was as natural as breathing. So that's really how I got into it.
That's such a wonderful, it's such wonderful things to know that people like you are still there on this planet. Vara, can I understand, is there a favorite animal movie or a book that is close to your heart?
So I usually avoid animal movies because I get very teary-eyed when I see those. But I read a lot, and the stories that have stayed with me the most, I think, would be Premchand's. I think Premchand's depictions of animals, I find them very nuanced, very layered, very profound, and very, very moving. I also love how Ruskin Bond depicts so beautifully in his writing about animals, particularly the relationships that we have with animals. But I think my all-time favorite would be Ben Morris. I think his book Animal Days, I remember coming across it in a book sale somewhere, and spent the whole afternoon, read it all in one afternoon. The funniest book ever, just sort of just a full appreciation of the relationship that exists with animals, and it's just so wonderful. And I think all naturalists, when they write about animals, it's sort of really, really interesting, and also really amusing, because so many things happen with animals that you've got to sort of see it in that way. So I think definitely Desmond Morris.
To be honest, I think what we learn from animals, they teach us more than what humans can teach us. That is what I see. The kind of bond that we share, and there is so much to learn from them every day. Coming back to
No,
the whole.
absolutely. And I think also, sorry,
No, sorry,
I
please,
was just
please.
going to say also that I think I think there's a lot. There are many layers to how much we really learn from animals and understand with animals. I mean, I think of course, it's sort of said quite a lot that having an animal, especially for a child at a young age, is a good thing. And when we talk about uh, child psychology and development and so on. But really, I think to understand the value of another, the intrinsic value of another species, to be able to relate to another species, to be able to, with very different, a very different everything, right? Like their biology, their behavior, their way of engaging with the world, their priorities, motivations are so different from ours. But to be able to understand that, to be able to coexist with that, to be able to make space for that, and also have space created for me in the lives of animals that I interact with, I think that has a profound impact on all of us as individuals. I mean, there's so much that we learn, and so much benefit. And I don't want to call it a benefit, but so our lives are so much more enriched by sharing them with animals. I think there is a lot
I,
there.
I mean, let me just interrupt you. I think, as humans, we evolve. I'll just give you a small example. Like we have three of these, small animals, three dogs, are like our fur babies. And you won't believe it. I mean, I keep reminding myself and my mother, when we humans get upset, we don't talk to our parents or to our friends for a couple of days. And sometimes we don't, those days turns into months and years. But with these fur animals, I've learned it is so easy. Uh, Even if you're upset with them for a moment, the next moment he will come, he will lie down with you, he will cuddle up with you, and you forget everything. There's no such thing as a ego holding you back. I mean, it is
So
so
true.
much to learn. As humans, we can evolve so much learning from them. I mean, for me,
Indeed.
to be honest, it's been a journey. It's like every day is like you evolve with new things, you learn so much from them. uh,
Absolutely.
well, coming back to you, is there any initiative or an organization that you're working with in animal rights in India, sort of thing? If our audience can know about what exactly do you do, sort of thing.
So I've been involved with several organizations in India and Asia, and uh, I'm involved with one of the main areas of my work right now is with an organization called Samayu. That was an organization I helped found 3 years ago. And our approach to animal rights is somewhat different. So we don't just look at the surface. We really look at the root causes of the problem. So, for example, instead of reacting to cruelty, we would ask, why does this cruelty exist? How is it really embedded in the different systems, economic systems, political systems, social and cultural systems? How is this embedded? So our work is very intersectional in nature. It recognizes that animal issues are not isolated. Like I was saying earlier, you can't talk about animals in a vacuum. They're linked to environmental degradation, to human health issues, to systemic exploitation. So we collaborate with multiple kinds of organizations outside of the animal movement also, because everything is connected. I mean, you can't talk about, say, food systems without talking about the climate crisis. You can't talk about the animals in farming without talking about how our food systems are structured. So I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to really position animals in the broader space that they already occupy. But our response typically within from an animal perspective has been to just to look at the animal in a silo. Which we feel increasingly it does not give us enough gains. I also work with other organizations. I work with an organization in Nagpur to support street dogs. They do a lot of on-site first aid. It's called Lily's Voice, and I'm involved with Animals Alliance Asia and Thrive Philanthropy, that supporting vegan advocacy across the world, really, and is particularly focusing a lot on the global south. There are also, I want to also highlight, there are lots of voices now, lots of individual activists, grassroots activists within the animal movement in India who are now starting to work and think a lot about linking up animal issues with other kinds of systemic oppression that we see and experience in the world, and really sort of broadening the whole human-animal relationship. So there's quite a lot of interesting work happening in both India and Asia and the global South in general.
That's amazing to know. Can I also understand from you what exactly animal welfare means to you as Vardha?
Um, I think at a very basic level, I mean, animal suffering to me simply just means it's about reducing and hopefully ending suffering for animals. And for me, though, I go a step beyond. For me, it's really about justice. You know, it's really about, it's not just about limiting ourselves to the welfare of an animal and suffering, even though, of course, that is very important. But it's also about acknowledging that animals really exist for their own sake. You know, that they're not here to serve human needs. A cow is not meant to be tied up all day. A dog is not meant to be sort of living outside
A house.
a gate, a house, yeah, at the gate. A bird is not meant to be clipped off her wings. So these sort of issues are more than just animal suffering. You know, of course, we need to reduce animal suffering and improve animal welfare, but we really need to also be talking about the fact that animals are beings with bodily autonomy, that they have a right to exist for themselves. They have a right to lead their own lives. And that's why I talk about multi-species justice. You know, it's really about dismantling the systems that treat animals mostly as commodities. You know, it's about recognizing that a dog is not just a pet, a cow is not just a dairy animal, and a poultry bird is not just meat. You know, they are beings with lives of their own, and they're free of, and they should be free of the weight of human expectations.
I think from what I hear from you, it is more of we humans need to understand that the creator has created this entire creation for a reason. Every human being, every species is there, uh, you know, for a reason. It is a life. We all need to respect it. But I think over the period, what I feel is we humans have we forgotten to respect the nature, you know, what we have, or the creator's creation, and we've become more of God. I don't know how you see that, but that is the way I think. And we've started abusing everything that we can do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we have forgotten a lot of our, sort of what our ethical and moral frameworks were already, especially in India at the global south. We see a lot of this, that lots of ethical and moral frameworks that we used to abide by, those are not upheld anymore. Those connections are certainly lost. And whether the universe, a divine, God, or in whatever way that, the whole system exists in anybody's imagination. I think the fact that now we sort of see animals in nature as either a threat or a resource, and not really as beings that exist with us in this in all of the universe.
This
I think is certainly, I think
entire
that's very
ecosystem, I think.
exactly, yeah, that's
It's just we need to learn to live in harmony with everything. I mean,
indeed.
but I guess that is what we humans are all about. Uh, Varda, can you tell us
Absolutely.
any of the incident or story that is, which has affected you or has been close to your heart, connected to animal rights?
I mean, I don't even need to search for a specific incident. Of course, there have been so many, but then those repeat so
I am
repeatedly, because I
sure
think the
about that.
tragedy, yeah, because I think the tragedy of what happens is really every day. You know, I mean, it is so it permeates our lives. You walk down a street and you see dogs that are sick or beaten or scared. You go to you go to different cities and you see illegal meat shops, you see abandoned cows. Every farm you step in, you see it. Cows that are abandoned, that are no longer useful, animals that are beaten and exploited and then discarded. The suffering of animals is constant. It's around us everywhere. Their pain is so normalized by society. And I think that's what really makes animal rights so urgent, because it's not just one horrific case. It's not this one incident that affects me or somebody else, but it's the millions and millions of cases, the millions of unspoken horrors that animals are experiencing. And I think that is really why the scale of the problem is so significant and so urgent. And I think even though in that suffering, there are certainly also moments of connection. I mean, I think lots of people working on the grassroots, rescuing animals, doing direct work with animals, would have also experienced, I mean, no matter how many cases you come across, you look into the eyes of a dog, who would trust you with his or her life, cows that seek comfort, birds and all sorts of animals. I mean, there's so much connection also that you can find in the animal world. Like we were speaking earlier, the trust from animals is so incredible, and in so many ways that's so positive. These relationships, these relationships that are really built in very fleeting moments, these are the positive relationships and those positive moments that also remind me of why this fight matters. And in those moments is really when you can so clearly see it, that that those animals don't have the right to simply exist, to simply be alive, for their own right. They don't have that as I do, and they should. I mean, animals matter too, and that's that's something that I think is it can also be found in the everyday.
I am sure about that. I mean, it's all this we need to understand. We humans need to have more of empathy, which I think is lacking in all of us, if I'm not mistaken. Well, coming to another question, I mean, especially related to India, what key challenges do you think the animals face in India, and how can they be addressed, or how they can be brought out?
I mean, there are so many challenges at different levels and through different systems. But I think overall, if I had to pick one overall theme, I would pick invisibility. I think invisibility is one of it's the forgotten movement. Animals exist all around us, but their suffering is not seen. It is ignored. It is normalized. A dog can be beaten up in broad daylight, and a cow can be just tied up for her entire life, never knowing freedom. A poultry bird can be just crushed in a transport truck, suffocating amongst thousands of others. And the thing is that nobody will ask a question. Nobody will be held accountable. It is perfectly normalized to do these things. And of course, the legal system is weak, but the bigger problem, I think, really is that society at large just accepts this as normal, and unless I think the public consciousness shifts, laws alone can't really change anything. And I think the first step is really to really make animal suffering more visible. It has to become impossible to ignore. It can no longer be acceptable that you just beat a dog on the street, and that's perfectly fine. It's only when people will start seeing animals as beings and not objects, that's really when real change will start to happen, I think.
I think, I mean, just to add further, I think over and above, I think, the society needs to be educated on this. It has to be brought to a light, because from what I have been experiencing, or what I have been sensing, or what I've been seeing around and talking to these people that I've been trying to, communicating with over the past couple of months, I've come to a realization that our society as a whole needs to be educated. It needs to be brought to light. We need to bring in more of empathy, and as you said rightfully, we need to find a way to coexist in harmony with all these animals. And what you rightly said, we need to see them as human, as life, rather than just objects, as you rightly said.
Amen. Yeah.
Exactly. This is something I 100% agree with you. Taking it further on this, we know that we have an Indian law which is Prevention of Cruelty Act since 1960. But how effective do you think this law is?
I mean, there's the PCA Act. There are also other laws for protecting animals. But unfortunately, as we all know, in reality, they're rarely enforced, right? So you could beat an animal, kill an animal, exploit an animal, and walk away without any consequences. Because right now it's up to the activists to push for enforcement. So if there's something that happens, it's the activists who will go and file an FIR and really sort of push for enforcement. Or in different contexts, it's animal organizations, animal activists who are making sure that whatever laws exist are enforced. But laws should not need activists to function. I mean, they really need to be embedded into the fabric of society. So I think, like I was saying earlier, I think the challenge is not just law enforcement, and of course we need to do more and more to push policy forward. There is no doubt about that. But none of that actually gets implemented because the culture, the normalization that has happened in the culture is not even in consonance with what the law says. So we really need to challenge that idea that that killing an animal is just something that happened. I mean, it's not just killing an animal. I mean, you're taking a life. I mean, there's a significant weight to that. And until that takes root, laws will just remain
On
like
paper?
words on a page, right? Yeah, exactly. Because
Absolutely.
it's not going to ever shift, because nobody will ever implement or be interested in enforcing these laws.
I think it's more, I think the lack of awareness of implementation and, the knowledge, even, uh, I don't want to go into that, but I think as we were discussing earlier, the law is there, but implementation and awareness of the law, I think that is where it is all lacking. Because as you rightly said, I mean, I can share one of the examples. People take it casually, even if they drive over a street dog, when it comes to a street dog or a cat, it's such a casual thing. So what? They forget that even that dog or a puppy feels the pain, has to go through all the issues that it needs to go, and who's going to take it to a vet or to a hospital. Because we humans, I think we've come to a place where we really don't care about these things anymore. I mean, sorry to say that.
Yeah,
uh,
I completely agree. It's really, and even, I mean, just to talk about a dog being hit by a car, even when a dog dies on the road and the body is just left, for more cars to just run over that. And I know lots of us would go and sort of, if possible, try and remove the dog and put the body to the side. But it's just sort of like, it's this, and every time that happens, I'm always sort of thinking like, this will never be acceptable for anything, right? Like but it's just completely normalized that there's just a dead animal and it doesn't matter, and this happens in every aspect. People just sort of think it's perfectly fine the way, it's like, oh, your dog is tied up all day. And it's like, yeah, well, that's what you're supposed to do to dogs. Dogs, kutte ko to bandh ke hi rakhenge. I think that is, the engagement with animals on is very human centric. It's based on our needs, unfortunately.
I think, um, Varda, I think more than that, I think humanity has lost uh, its own charm, or whatever it is, being human. Abhi, just recently I was reading on one of the articles. I mean, this is just a bit off the record sort of thing. हम तो बोलते हैं कि कुत्ते को ऐसा हो गया. There was a lady who was caught, who had an accident on Bombay Pune Expressway, and you won't believe it. There's an entire article on the internet available, and she was like, no, none of the cars stopped even to stop and ask her if there is any help needed or anything. Her entire car was smashed and everything. Fortunately, she survived with her and the driver. But I mean, what have we humans come down to? जब हम अपने ही रेस को नहीं कर सकते, तो इन बेचारों को जो बोल भी नहीं सकते, उनके साथ क्या करेंगे हम? So I think it is
Yeah.
overall, I think it is the humanity that has lost its values, what we should have had.
Yeah, I think that's where the multiple systems of oppression also really comes in, like, because there's so many, there is so much otherness, there is so much, there is so everybody is so busy trying to just survive that to be able to pause and be present for what is happening around us is just something that is that just does not make it, in the priority list of a person going about their day, which is really sad, and because I think it has consequences in so many ways. It has consequences in ways of just the impact of isolation, the impact of how how isolated people are becoming as a result, how communities are breaking down with the mental health problems that we see. This is all down to a certain lifestyle and a certain sort of push to do more, to achieve more, to consume more, to be rushed, to sort of like what I don't know, like it's like every time I hear about attention span, it is even less than what I last heard, right? Like nobody wants to read a book now. Everybody just wants to look at some 10-second Instagram video, and it's like, well, there is just no connection, and I don't want to sort of say that that everybody is like that, or it's all hopeless, or that I mean, I think people genuinely do care. I think everybody, I like to believe, everybody has that fundamental seed of empathy. I think it just gets covered up by a lot of things that we end up having to do, self-preservation. There's so much. I've always said this to our own team in the context of working with anybody who's an activist, an advocate, that everybody has such a busy life. Everybody has homes and jobs and partners and children and parents and family, and hopefully some hobbies, and all sorts of like and in that there's sort of like we're talking about animals. So I think it has to be we need to understand that it's all of these things are not black and white. Like it has to be contextually, the conversation has to be contextual, for different people that we engage with. But I like to think that everybody is everybody would want to, I think if educated, I think if the information is available, I would like to think that everybody would want to help if they can.
I'm sure about that. I mean, as they say, humanity is still alive. It's not that it's completely dead. And we humans have to live on hope. I mean, that is something we all live on, hoping that it will be better tomorrow. Coming back to the whole thing, Varda, do you think there is enough of awareness about animal rights amongst the general public?
No, it's unfortunately not. I mean, I think we've established that, like, just through this conversation also, we need so much more awareness. I know organizations and individuals in India and globally, there is so much effort gets put in awareness and education work. But unfortunately, it's not enough. And I think it also struggles from, being done at scale. Because I think one of the problems with awareness related work is that, I mean, funding is going to be needed for everything, right? So if you want to do awareness related work at scale, to be able to attract funding for work like that can be extremely challenging because it doesn't show immediate impact. Things like awareness, it's social change. It's not, there is no immediate quantifiable measurable result of
True.
awareness, because awareness is something that it takes time. It's about building something that is deep, that is long lasting, that is transformative. And I'm not saying that impact assessment for that cannot be done. I'm not saying that it cannot be measured. I'm just saying that it cannot be measured with the limited immediate impact thinking that we now have, or often have. So I think that becomes quite, because lots of people sort of feel like, oh, well, this is something that will take 10 years and we don't even know if after 10 years it'll be, it'll give us the impact that we want. So let us then instead do something that we can do now and we can see quick results, right? So then for the advocates, for the funders, for the whole ecosystem, the whole movement, it becomes harder to undertake education that is impactful, education that is contextually relevant to different regions. And I think that's another big problem. I think when we talk about education, I mean, we see it in India, the way we talk about is even just dogs. We were having this conversation earlier. The way that people have had dogs, have had pets, pet dogs in India has always been much more fluid. I mean, it's not been this idea that a dog just lives in your house, tied up in a gated, your house is in this gated community and you have a flat, and There have always been community animals, but the way we talk about dogs in India, even to whoever we are educating, it's always sort of like this difference between pet dogs and street dogs. And of course, I understand why that is necessary now. But lots of times, the conversations we are having are not even contextually relevant to the audiences that we are having. I think another challenge is that vis-a-vis education is that I think we need to, at this stage of the movement, I think we need to do more than education, because we don't have the critical mass yet to make this mainstream. We are still a small, a minority movement within a minority of broader social justice issues. Um, so we need more than education. We really need narrative building. We need cultural shifts. We need movement building. We need more people to not just be educated about this issue, but people, get people to really stop and question and see animals as beings who matter. And that kind of awareness building, the movement building kind of work, where we're really building relationships, building a culture of what it means to be in a multi-species justice consciousness. That takes time. It takes persistence. It takes I think it takes a complete rethinking of also how we communicate these issues. So I think awareness tends to be a catch-all phrase for many such activities. But I think we need to be doing it with much more nuance, much more strategy, much more contextually relevant messaging, and at a much, much, much greater scale.
I think it's all about bringing the community together instead of doing it individually, trying to make an impact. I think it is, if we can bring the entire community together, I think it would be quite a different storytelling over the period of next decade or so. Uh,
Absolutely, and we see so much of that. Like when we do community engagement in different regions, it makes such a big difference. And I think I've often said this, that if everybody was just to engage with their own community and just sort of make sure that that community is shifts the way it relates to animals, I mean, that would be such a big thing. Also, community engagement, unfortunately, is something that more organizations and individuals are doing now, but again has not had the same level of funding, of support, that maybe some of the other ways of doing animal advocacy have received. Not at least in the last few years. I think awareness is also a lot of thinking on education and awareness has also changed. So some kinds of education and awareness certainly are being done at a large scale, but the community level work is really not something that is being undertaken at any significant scale.
but a given community, and we have so much of corporates available, in this country. Do you think the corporates can contribute as well towards the animal welfare in India or across? I mean, whatever it is.
I think certainly. I think corporates can contribute very significantly. I think there is a large there's a large population of just their own employees that can be sensitized, that can be educated, there can be shifts in and their own communities, right? So the actual geographical areas that are being inhabited by these different entities. Also, corporates have such a significant role to play as an individual entity also, right? As in their food policies, in their procurement policies, in using their influence to ask for more for animals. So I think corporates have a huge potential in contributing to improving the animal conversation, right, in India. And I hope to see that. I hope that more of that we see in the coming years.
I really look forward to that. I mean, we hope we have more people like Ratan Tata, Sir Ratan Tata, to be there to advocate. I don't know what's exactly right now the direction Tatas have, but I think with him there was a lot of things that changed.